The Third Side of the Coin, brought to you by Excalibur Coaching and Consulting.
Welcome to part 2.
Hello, and welcome to the Third Side of the Coin podcast, episode 5, How Do I Identify as a Leader? My name is Aberle, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Tim Wong.
Hi, Alex. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic.
When we start our first journey into a leadership cycle or the leadership journey, we always have something to prove. And I see that time and time again. Once we step into a leadership role, we always feel we have something to prove. And having something to prove would then demonstrate that I am successful. Now, the journey I've noticed now is moving from having something to prove to having nothing to prove. And that generally is being the best in the world into becoming the best for the world. So that is a huge maturity in leadership journey when you begin to see other people's success around you. In helping other people to become successful around you allows you yourself to be successful. Now, remote working becomes the norm, then you have to support other people's success. Otherwise, I don't think the journey will be as interesting or as successful if you just focus on something to prove. I have something to prove, and by proving it, I will be successful.
It's quite fascinating how aligned we are, maybe because of the fact that we've gone through the journey, even though a completely different journey, but getting to the point where we experienced both being direct managers of individuals and individual contributors who actually advised top-notch leaders on various learning opportunities. And I think you need to have that in life. You have to experience both. To me, when I first moved away from being a global head of service transformation at a large organization and then stepping into an individual contributor role. It was a transition, but it was a wonderful transition. I was able to see a completely different side of the story, and my eyes were reopened. I've led the teams, and I had certain opinions about different leadership styles, but then I was put in a position where I had no team besides my peers, but we supported the individuals who in essence were similar to what I used to be in my past role. And I think it's kind of important, at least I recommend highly, if you ever want to grow, change those roles. Remember, you've mentioned the circle where, you swim in the same pond and you become an expert. And if you don't swim maybe down the river to explore, it's difficult to actually become better.
You're correct. If you keep swimming in your same pond, you think you're an expert, but really you're not. You're not even pushing anything. It's taking that leap out of the pond that makes it different. And I want to pick up from what you were saying about leadership and then moving to that individual role. That is the next stage that I'm beginning to notice now. I mean, the terminology influencer is now coming up a lot. Mm-hmm. And that is, I see that as a next stage leader or a next stage leadership journey. So, you might have people reporting to you and following you or whatever, but then once that journey is over, or you're sick, or you're tired of that journey, or bored of that journey, you become an influencer where there is no formalities or formal structure, but at the same time, your expressions or the things you do will influence people around you. That is I hope that would be the leadership goals of everyone, because that's when you become the best for the world rather than being the best in the world.
If you truly want to become a leader, you don't need a title. It's about your ability to inspire people and ensure people follow you without having to follow you. I want to share a story real quick. Just happened to me recently. There was an opportunity to I'm going to call it a project. And one of the ladies that used to be on my team, and hierarchically, she reported to me, but I always told my team that you're not working for me, you're working with me, because I genuinely believe that. Yes, of course, we all had goals, and I held individuals accountable, just like individuals held me accountable. But I truly always believed in the idea that if you become better than I, then I've accomplished my goal, just like with my children, and I have 3 of them. I don't want them to be as good as I am. I want them to be better, more evolved. So when I expressed my interest, she actually said, "Are you sure you would report to me?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Number one, my role as a mentor is to ensure that you've grown to be better than me. And if we are in this position where I want to help the organization and I can step in for a short-term assignment and help you out and make you even more successful and help you shine, that's perfect with me. And that's the stage of my career right now and my evolution.
That is highly admirable, and also it's way up there in terms of the leadership journey. The moment you are able to confidently say to someone that is reporting to you or not as experienced as you, or some other way where they see you as a senior, and you're able to say, my success is really your success, where I want you to become better than me. When you're able to start doing that, then you have become a high potential leader. Very few individuals believe it or are aware of that, in that they always believe that there is a certain hierarchy or certain behavior traits that needs to be subservient trait, or that you can't be better than me because you're reporting to me. That's a very old way of seeing it. So you need to intentionally do it, like what you're doing. So most recently, I had a direct report where I made it very intentional that at the end of the day, I want you to become much better than me, which isn't hard. But at the same time, I want to make sure that, I can set her up so that she goes on to something even bigger and better than where she is now. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the organization that I'm in right now. Well, she has gone on to something big and better. And I said, please remember me. but what you said, people call it servant leadership. People call it authentic leadership. People calling it leading from behind. It is the basis of all leadership. The first leader you come in contact with is your mother. And what you're doing is very much what, in the Eastern philosophy, the mother is your first teacher. She is. In the Western philosophy, the mother is a leader at home. But we know that it's more than that. So with that attitude of nurturing, and it is nurturing, and you're able to transition and migrate that into a workplace, you can make a person so effective. Everyone's spending more time at the workplace, and you want to ensure that they as an individual flourish. And that's a key word. Not only as an individual, but also in the role that they've been engaged to perform. Mm-hmm. And your approach was so aligned, but just the way you've said it is really a very practical way of engaging both the heart and the mind. Right? If the heart isn't engaged in the work, the mind will be always looking, where can I go to next? Mm-hmm. And even if it's a small increment in pay, or even not an increment in pay, they're out of the door. But if you're able to engage the heart as well, which means trust, which we talked about in previous episodes, that person will do a lot for you. And that loyalty is what we're looking for these days, because yes, the gig economy is making full-time employment ambiguous. But then you want to be able to be on the benches, ready to be called on whenever there's an opportunity, or to extend that contract as long as possible. And that again comes from the ability to create that trust, whether you are a person you're reporting or whether you're being reported into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as I define my leadership identity, it's very important that I know what I stand for. So I ensure that I first understand the strengths, motivational levels of my employees, and the overall situation I have to manage, and then adapt the appropriate style to influence the team. And these styles are, could be directive, supportive, participatory, or achievement oriented. And I always strive to be a transformational leader. And based on the contemporary model of transformational leadership, I do use my ability to influence people to meet goals by demonstrating the behaviors of integrity and trust and persuasive communication skills to inspire those who work with me and follow me to be confident and committed to the organizational vision and goals. Because it's great to be a good, evolved individual, but if you're not necessarily thinking or communicating the organizational vision and goals, then a lot of your identity or styles could be useless.
Yeah, I really like what you just said then, because you've broken it down into 3 things of what values mean as a leader. So, everyone say it doesn't line up with my values. Well, what the heck do you mean by that? And just then what you said, those 3 things you mentioned, the last one being persuasive communication, is really breaking down what values mean to you. So
Yes.
integrity and honesty is your values, and being able to persuasively communicate that is also valuable, because you're standing up to those principles. That is values. And so a lot of time when we don't feel right with a leader, we feel that our values are not aligning. What that means is that I don't feel I'm being supported, and I don't feel that I'm being supported where I will become successful. And what does that mean? Well, it's not reflecting in integrity. It's not reflecting honesty. And they're not communicating clearly. So the way you've broken it down has already brought incredible practicality in what are the easy steps to start your leadership journey or to hone in on your leadership journey. 1 is integrity. We all know that. 2 is honesty. Say what you mean and do what you mean. And then persuasive communication, and communicate it clearly without any ambiguity. That is leadership. And to be able to do all those 3, you also have to remember, be a good listener. Drop your judgments and just listen.
Yeah. And perhaps that is one of the most difficult skills to learn, to listen, because listening is also a part of communication, right?
Yeah, and it comes from practice.
Yeah.
The more you're willing to listen to someone and practice, then that's it. There's no short and easy way into it. It's like cooking. You become a real good cook and become a chef through practice. Equally, by becoming a good listener, it's through practice as well. When people feel that I'm not being heard, it's an indication that you haven't spent time to listen to someone.
I absolutely agree with that. And ultimately, there is no one right or wrong method to lead a team. And the most effective approach for leading is being flexible when selecting approaches and applying them depending on the situation. And the most effective approach that worked for me was situational leadership. The model of the situational leadership that argues that leaders need to use different styles depending on the members' developmental needs, and that involves competence and commitment. So in closing, for me, there is no leader without a follower, and the follower who trusts a leader without being forced to put in the effort forth will be inspired and motivated to reach the most challenging goals. So whether you are new or an experienced leader developing and refining your personal leadership statements or identity, will be a catalyst to gaining more knowledge about you. Well, thank you so much, Tim. I really enjoyed our conversation. And if you enjoyed our discussion, please like and comment below and subscribe to our channel. To learn more about executive leadership and career coaching, resume writing, or organizational development services, go to www.excaliburcoaching.com.